Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that, well, plunges into some pretty dense topics to pull out the most valuable insights for you. And today we're navigating a really fascinating and frankly increasingly vital world, teaching English to young learners, or TEYL as it's often known. Our guide for this exploration, it's a really rich resource titled Ayagana Kavi Dakna Taimi Tankara Titina, essentially, a comprehensive guide to teaching English to young kids. So, our mission today is simple give you a genuine shortcut. We're going to distill the most, let's say, impactful knowledge from this guide. We really want to reveal the nuances of how young children, maybe age 3 to 12 or so, pick up language early on. So, look, whether you're a parent thinking about education, or maybe you're an educator looking for fresh ideas, or perhaps you're just curious about how little minds absorb language, well, get ready for some really illuminating insights.
Absolutely. And the global demand for English, it's just huge. What's really striking, I think, is how this demand has pushed TYL right to the forefront of education policy, worldwide. It's not just seen as some future skill anymore. It's increasingly recognized as a fundamental building block in early development. That makes this whole subject incredibly relevant right now.
That global significance you mentioned, it covers a lot of ground. I'm curious though, does the guide point out any specific regions where the reasons for learning English are maybe totally different or even kind of conflicting, given all the different contexts?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the guide does exactly that. It doesn't just list where TYL is booming, but digs into the why and those reasons. They vary dramatically.
Yeah.
So take Asia, for example, places like China, Japan, South Korea. You see this incredible parental demand, right? It's often driven by a real desire for global competitiveness. And that translates into strong government support too. But, and this is a big but, it often funnels this intense exam-focused culture right into the young learner classroom.
Ah, okay. So less about chatting, more about test scores.
Often, yes. It can paradoxically end up limiting that sort of natural fluent communication because the pressure is on passing the test. Now, contrast that sharply with parts of Europe, say Finland, Spain, or Poland. There, English tends to be woven much more seamlessly into early education policy. The focus there is heavily on communicative and play-based approaches. They're really aiming for natural language acquisition through interaction, through immersion. Well, a much more holistic view.
More child-led, perhaps.
Definitely more child-led, yes. Then, if you look at Africa and Latin America, the drive for English is often profoundly tied to global mobility and, importantly, job opportunities. It's viewed very directly as a pathway to better economic futures. The big challenge there, though, is often a serious lack of resources and finding enough trained teachers. That can make setting up effective KLL programs incredibly tough.
Even with that strong motivation you mentioned.
Precisely. The will is there, but the means might not be.
It really is a fascinating mosaic of motivations, isn't it? From very practical economic goals to, deep-seated ideas about education. The guide seems to really show how English is seen as, well, more than just a language. It's a tool, maybe a stepping stone, sometimes even framed as a developmental right. That really sets the stage for understanding the how, I think. So, okay, we've got this global picture of why English teaching is expanding so fast. But now, let's zoom in on the stars of the show. The young learners themselves. What makes them tick? And how does that mean you need a totally different approach compared to teaching adults?
The guide mentions their notoriously short attention spans. I think any parent who's tried reading a story to a 3-year-old can deeply relate to that one. How does the guide suggest teachers actually manage these energetic, sometimes chaotic little learners?
You've absolutely hit on the core challenge, and honestly, the core insight, too. The guide really emphasizes that for young kids, play isn't just a method, it is the learning process.
Ah, okay. So not just making lessons fun.
Exactly. It's about leveraging their natural way of engaging with the world to actually kind of hardwire language acquisition. Trying to separate play from learning at that age. It just doesn't work effectively. Beyond just play, the guide highlights the absolute need for varied tasks and frequent changes between them. A good tail lesson. It's often like a whirlwind of different activities.
Like a song, then a game, then something else.
Precisely. A song, then a quick game, maybe a simple craft, then perhaps a short story. It keeps pace with those short attention spans. Also vital is multisensory input. We're talking visuals, lots of gestures, using those real-life objects that make language tangible.
Like bringing in an actual apple when teaching the word apple.
Exactly that. It grounds the abstract word in a concrete, memorable experience. And of course, smart use of technology fits in here too. And this isn't just about keeping them entertained. It's based on cognitive science. Engaging multiple senses really boosts memory and understanding in young brains. There's also a really strong emphasis on oral skills first, prioritizing listening and speaking before jumping into reading and writing.
Makes sense. It mirrors how they learn their first language.
It does, building that natural foundation. And interestingly, even with these universals, cultural variations still play a role. You might see more flexible exploratory setups in, say, Scandinavia versus more structured approaches, even within play, in parts of East Asia.
It certainly sounds like teaching this age group demands incredible creativity and adaptability. It's not just about knowing English, is it? It's about knowing how to make that language practically jump off the page or out of a puppet and come alive for them.
Right. Shifting focus now maybe to the really practical side, the how-to. What are the specific strategies the guide talks about, the methods educators use? And what about the tools of the trade they rely on? Are there any methods the guide really champions?
Oh, absolutely. The guide details several methods that are very active and immersive. A cornerstone is something called total physical response, or TPR. Now, this isn't just a simple idea. It's a really powerful method where actions and language are directly linked. It reinforces meaning without needing translation.
Like saying stand up and the kids actually stand up? Exactly. The beauty of TPR, especially for little ones, is it bypasses complex explanations. New words become instantly understandable and memorable through doing. Storytelling and role play are also highlighted as essential. They don't just spark imagination, they create these rich contexts for using new words and phrases naturally. It's how kids make sense of things.
And songs, I imagine they feature heavily.
Oh, definitely. Songs, rhymes, chants, they're fantastic. Great for memory, for rhythm, for pronunciation. And it's fun, repetitive, almost subconscious learning. Collaborative learning is another key strategy, getting kids working in pairs or small groups.
Good for social skills, too, presumably.
Crucial for social skills, yes. Learning to negotiate meaning, interact politely, all in English. And finally, there's scaffolding. This is all about providing gradual support, maybe using visual aids, prompts, modeling the language, and then slowly taking that support away as the child gets more confident and independent.
Those strategies sound incredibly dynamic. It really paints a picture of a classroom buzzing with activity. So when it comes to the materials, the tools of the trade, what are educators using to bring these strategies to life? Does the guide mention priorities, especially for those, resource-strapped regions we talked about?
Yeah, the materials are usually a rich mix, often quite resourceful. Traditionally, you've got flashcards, bright picture books, puppets are always popular, and lots of realia.
Those real objects again.
Those real objects, yes. Things like fruit, toys, classroom items, they just connect words to concrete things really well. But increasingly, digital tools are becoming key too. Interactive games, songs on video, short animations, worksheets, and activity books. They have their place, but the guide stresses balance. It explicitly warns against just rote learning.
So no endless A is for apple drills.
Ideally not, no. The goal is applying that A in a meaningful way. What I find really insightful is the emphasis on learner-created materials. Kids drawing pictures related to the lesson, making simple crafts, maybe mini projects about what they learned, that really personalizes the language, makes it stick.
That makes sense. It gives them ownership.
Exactly. And for those low-resource environments, the guide seems to lean towards materials that are multi-purpose and easy to get or make. Realia, simple drawings, teacher-made flashcards, prioritizing engagement over fancy tech.
It really does highlight the ingenuity needed from teachers, doesn't it? Creatively blending the old and new, the physical and digital, and often just making the most of whatever's available to create that immersive feel.
Okay, building on that, how do teachers keep these super energetic young learners truly engaged? We've talked activities, but what about the psychological side, the classroom management techniques that keep their eyes bright and minds switched on? Engagement, as we've said, it's just paramount, and it's a bit of a delicate art. Movement and games are right at the top of the list, not just as fun diversions, but as actual crucial pathways for learning. They keep kids physically active, which helps them stay mentally focused, prevents boredom, channels that natural energy. It's interesting, the guide sort of reminds us, we're not just teaching English, we're teaching how to learn.
And for young kids, moving isn't just a break.
Not at all. It's often a critical part of how they process information, almost like hitting a reset button for their brains sometimes. Another really powerful tool, positive reinforcement. Simple things like stickers, stars, but also genuine specific praise. Young learners thrive on that encouragement. It builds their confidence, creates a positive vibe around English.
Makes them want to participate more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Offering choice is also very effective. letting learners pick an activity sometimes or express themselves creatively. It gives them that vital sense of ownership, which is a massive motivator. And connecting it all back to the bigger picture, making the language meaningful by linking it to their daily lives is key. Using routines, simple classroom instructions in English, talking about familiar topics like family or pets. It makes the English relevant, usable right away, not just abstract words on a page.
It really underscores the importance of creating a positive, dynamic, sort of nurturing space, doesn't it? Where kids feel safe to try things out, make mistakes even, as they figure out this new language. Now, here's where, for me, it gets really interesting. The guide draws this incredibly insightful link between the Montessori philosophy and TUL. Montessori, which we often associate with early childhood education in general, seems to offer some remarkably valuable perspectives specifically for language teaching here. It almost feels that, well, like a blueprint for many of the best practices we've just been discussing.
It really does. What stands out is how neatly the core Montessori principles align with what we know works best in TAIL. It kind of underscores the timelessness of truly child-centered learning. The guide points to 5 key Montessori principles and how they apply directly and powerfully. First, the use of materials. Think about those classic Montessori tools. Sandpaper letters for tracing, the movable alphabet for building words, real objects for concrete understanding. These hands-on resources directly support language acquisition because kids are physically interacting with the language.
Touching and feeling the letters, literally.
Exactly. Second, movement. Montessori philosophy fundamentally gets that children learn best when they're physically involved. In TAIL, this translates perfectly to active learning, arranging word cards, matching pictures to objects, acting things out in role play. It's not just letting off steam, it's integral to internalizing the language. Third principle, independence. In a Montessori classroom, kids benefit hugely from choosing their own tasks, working at their own pace, taking some responsibility for their learning journey.
So applying that to TAIL.
It means empowering children, giving them some agency in how they engage with English. That fosters genuine self-motivation, much more effective than just, forced compliance. Fourth, multisensory learning. We've touched on this already, but Montessori is a huge proponent of engaging sight, touch, sound, and movement altogether. It leads to much deeper understanding. It's not just hearing English, it's seeing it, touching it, doing it. That really impacts retention.
Makes perfect sense. And the fifth?
The fifth is the prepared environment. The idea that a calm, orderly, uncluttered space, free from unnecessary distractions, actually encourages focus. It fosters curiosity and allows for that natural, unforced exploration of English materials. And it raises a good question for all educators, really. Are our English classrooms always prepared in a way that truly maximizes a child's natural drive to learn? Does it foster that sense of discovery?
So what's the big takeaway here? It sounds like the Montessori approach isn't just, an interesting parallel. It acts almost like a strong philosophical foundation, reinforcing so many Tawile best practices. It really champions that child-centric, exploratory, deeply engaging experience, empowering kids to discover language naturally, on their own terms, rather than just receiving rigid instruction. It seems focused on building a love for language from the inside out.
Wow. This has been a truly enlightening journey into teaching English to young learners. We've covered a lot of ground from that dynamic global picture of Tellwell to really understanding the unique needs of young learners demanding specific approaches. And we've dived into the most effective strategies and materials educators are using. Plus, that powerful insight seeing how seamlessly the Montessori philosophy fits with and supports these best practices.
Indeed. I think the core message that really comes through is clear. Truly successful English teaching for young kids isn't about rote drills or just gramming vocabulary. It's fundamentally about creating these immersive, engaging, age-appropriate experiences, tapping into their natural curiosity, fostering a genuine enjoyment of language. That builds a foundation that can really last a lifetime.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you, our listener, with maybe a provocative thought to mull over. Considering how vital that early exposure and those tailored methods clearly are for young language learners, embracing play, movement, multisensory input, making learning almost subconscious. Think about this. How might these same principles be radically adapted for adult learners who often struggle with new languages? Are we perhaps missing huge opportunities for play, for movement, for multisensory immersion in our adult language classes? Are we clinging too much to traditional, maybe less effective methods? Perhaps there's a kind of childlike learner, eager and ready for exploration, waiting to be unleashed in all of us when we approach new language. Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning those assumptions, and we'll see you next time on the Deep Dive.